Oh, no, no, no. The story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah, yeah. The FBI had had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way.
47 seconds ago, Senator John Kennedy did something that made every person in that packed Senate hearing room hold their breath. He looked FBI Director Kash Patel dead in the eyes and asked the question that's been haunting Washington for years. Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or did somebody kill him? And Patel's response? Watch his face, watch his hands, watch how he shifts in that chair, how his jaw tightens just barely, how his eyes dart to his legal team for a split second before returning to Kennedy. Because what happens next will shock you. But let me back up because you need to understand how we got to this moment. Senate Judiciary Committee Oversight Hearing, Room 226, 2:47 p.m. This was supposed to be routine FBI budget discussions, standard operational briefings, the kind of session where senators ask prepared questions and FBI directors provide rehearsed answers designed to reveal nothing while appearing transparent. John Kennedy walked into that room with his usual Louisiana drawl and that deceptively casual manner that makes people think he's just some folksy Southern senator asking simple questions. But anyone who's watched Kennedy operate knows better. The man is a razor blade wrapped in magnolia blossoms, and when he starts asking questions, careers end. He's a Rhodes Scholar who graduated magna cum laude from Vanderbilt Law, but he talks like he just rolled off a Louisiana fishing boat. It's deliberate. It's tactical. It makes witnesses underestimate him right until the moment he destroys them with surgical precision. The first hour went exactly as expected. Kennedy methodically worked through his talking points, dismantling the FBI's credibility piece by piece. He started with the Wisconsin judge arrest, establishing that nobody gets to pick and choose which laws to follow. Clean, simple, building his foundation. Then he moved to Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, those FBI lovebirds who promised they'd stop Trump from becoming president. Kennedy read their text messages verbatim, his voice dripping with that particular brand of Southern disdain that cuts deeper than any shouting. Each word was delivered with surgical precision, like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. Trump's not ever going to become president. He read slowly, letting each syllable hang in the air. No, he won't. We'll stop it. The room was dead silent as Kennedy let those words sink in, watching Patel's face for any flicker of recognition that this wasn't just ancient history. But here's where it got interesting. Kennedy revealed that the FBI had paid Strzok $1.2 million and Page $800,000 to settle their wrongful termination lawsuits. $1.2 million to a man who actively interfered in a presidential election. You could see Patel's discomfort growing with each number Kennedy recited. Kennedy's voice cracked with genuine disgust when he said, "Pass me the sick bucket, please." Patel sat there taking it, giving his practiced non-answers, probably thinking he was managing the situation well enough. He had no idea what was coming. Then Kennedy shifted to the Hunter Biden laptop story. The timing was perfect, surgical even. Kennedy reminded everyone how 51 intelligence experts, led by Anthony Blinken, had claimed the laptop story was Russian disinformation. Rock stars, Kennedy called them sarcastically, Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, all of them lying to the American people. And here's the kicker: Kennedy revealed that the FBI had possessed Hunter's laptop for 10 months before that election. 10 months. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation, but they let those 51 experts lie anyway. Kennedy's voice carried that edge of moral fury that only comes when you've caught someone in an indefensible lie. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth? Kennedy asked. I don't have that name in front of me, sir, Patel replied. Kennedy's response was ice cold. Well, would you look? I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. Person with a brain and a beating heart. The room was already tense. Patel was already sweating under those lights, already feeling the walls closing in. His lawyers were probably praying Kennedy would run out of time, that this methodical destruction would end before it got worse. But Kennedy wasn't done, not even close, because that's when he asked the question that changed everything. Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or did somebody kill him? The silence that followed was deafening. Every camera in that room zoomed in on Patel's face. Every journalist stopped typing. Every committee member leaned forward. You could hear the air conditioning humming, the subtle whir of camera autofocus, someone's phone buzzing in the press gallery. The packed hearing room, which had been filled with the usual background noise of shuffling papers and whispered conversations, went absolutely still. Because this wasn't just another policy question or budget inquiry. This was Kennedy asking the FBI director to go on record about the most controversial death in federal custody in decades. Patel's mouth opened slightly before he spoke. You could see him calculating, trying to figure out the safest response. His left hand moved to adjust his tie, a telltale sign of stress that body language experts caught immediately. His breathing became slightly more shallow. The confident FBI director who'd been deflecting questions for an hour suddenly looked like a man walking through a minefield. His voice, when it finally came, was steady but careful. Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center. But Kennedy wasn't satisfied with that answer. Of course he wasn't. He immediately followed up. Are you going to release all the information about that? Here's where Patel made his mistake. Instead of giving a straight answer, he went into bureaucratic mode. We are working through that right now with the Department of Justice. The practiced deflection rolled off his tongue automatically, but Kennedy wasn't buying it. Kennedy pounced. When you think you'll have it done, Kash? I think in the near future, sir. Kennedy's response was pure gold. Like before I die? The room erupted in nervous laughter, but Kennedy wasn't joking. He was making a point that everyone in that room understood. His weathered face showed no trace of humor as he delivered the line. At 72 years old, Kennedy was literally asking if he'd live long enough to see the FBI's version of transparency. It was dark, it was pointed, and it was absolutely devastating. The FBI has been working on releasing Epstein information for years. How long exactly are the American people supposed to wait for transparency about the most connected pedophile in American history? Patel tried to recover with more bureaucratic language about protecting victims and not releasing CSAM, but the damage was done. His credibility was shattered. Kennedy had exposed the fundamental problem with a simple question that cut through all the legal complexity and procedural excuses. But here's what makes this exchange absolutely explosive. It's not just about Epstein, it's about everything Kennedy had been building toward in that hearing. The FBI that paid Peter Strzok $1.2 million after he interfered in an election. The FBI that had Hunter's laptop for 10 months while letting intelligence experts lie about Russian disinformation. The FBI that keeps promising transparency while delivering endless delays and excuses. Kennedy was asking a bigger question. Can we trust anything this FBI tells us? If they're willing to pay election interferers, if they're willing to hide evidence that could swing presidential elections, if they're willing to keep the American people in the dark about the most high-profile federal custody death in decades, what exactly are they willing to tell us the truth about? And Patel's response, that careful, calculated, bureaucratic non-answer, told us everything we needed to know. The clip went viral within minutes. Kennedy Asks Patel About Epstein Death was trending worldwide before the hearing even ended. Twitter exploded with clips, memes, and reaction videos. TikTok users were already creating remixes of Kennedy's "Like Before I Die" line. Conservative outlets ran it as evidence of FBI stonewalling. Liberal outlets focused on Kennedy's grandstanding. Cable news interrupted programming to analyze the exchange. Legal experts were debating whether Patel's response was adequate. But everyone was talking about the same thing. Why won't the FBI release the Epstein files? Because that's the real question, isn't it? It's been years since Epstein died. Years since Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. The criminal cases are closed. The investigations are complete. So what exactly are they protecting? Who exactly are they protecting? Kennedy didn't just ask whether Epstein was murdered. He asked why we're still waiting to find out. He asked why the same FBI that can raid a former president's home can't seem to release documents about a dead pedophile who allegedly hanged himself in federal custody. The exchange lasted less than 2 minutes, but it crystallized everything wrong with federal law enforcement transparency. Kennedy didn't need complicated legal theories or elaborate conspiracy frameworks. He just asked simple questions that Patel couldn't answer without admitting the FBI has been stonewalling the American people for years. That's the power of John Kennedy's approach. He doesn't yell, he doesn't grandstand, he just asks the questions everyone wants answered and lets the witnesses destroy themselves with their non-responses. And Patel walked right into it. Instead of saying, "Yes, we'll release everything," or "No, there are legitimate reasons we can't," he gave the classic Washington response that satisfies nobody and convinces everyone you're hiding something. His lawyers probably coached him on this exact scenario, told him to stick to bureaucratic language, avoid commitments. But they couldn't prepare him for Kennedy's follow-up questions, for that Louisiana drawl asking when exactly the near future might arrive. The hearing continued for another hour after that, but it didn't matter. Kennedy had gotten what he came for. He'd put the FBI director on record as believing Epstein killed himself, and he'd exposed that the FBI is still sitting on information about Epstein's death years after it happened. But here's the question that nobody's asking. Why did Kennedy choose this moment to ask about Epstein? He could have asked about current investigations, ongoing cases, budget priorities. He'd already landed devastating blows about Page and Strzok, about the Hunter laptop cover-up. He had Patel on the ropes, so why pivot to a supposedly closed case about a dead man? Instead, he chose to ask about a case that's supposedly closed, about a man who's been dead for years. Maybe because Kennedy knows something we don't. Maybe because he has information that suggests the Epstein case isn't as closed as the FBI wants us to believe. Maybe because he knows that question would make Patel squirm in ways that no budget inquiry ever could. Or maybe because Kennedy understands that the Epstein case is a perfect test of FBI credibility. If they're willing to hide information about this case, if they're willing to stonewall Congress and the American people about what really happened to Jeffrey Epstein, what else are they willing to hide? The clip is still spreading, the questions are still being asked, and Kash Patel is still sitting on those files, still promising transparency in the near future, still hoping John Kennedy dies before he has to deliver on his promises. But Kennedy isn't going anywhere, and neither are the questions. And sooner or later, the American people are going to get answers about what really happened to Jeffrey Epstein, whether the FBI wants to provide them or not. Sometimes accountability doesn't require hours of testimony or months of investigation. Sometimes it just requires one senator willing to ask the questions everybody else is afraid to ask. John Kennedy asked, and Kash Patel's non-answer told us everything we needed to know about the FBI's commitment to transparency. The truth always comes out. Always. And the longer they wait to release it, the worse it's going to look when it finally does.